special questions that you experience then, and then you're also like, okay, is this a normal question, or I don't know, do I only think this is a strange question?
Welcome to another episode of the Have You Met Me podcast. My name is Judy. Today, for this episode, I was interviewed by my colleagues Steven and Abel. We spoke about my experiences, my journey, and why I started Blueyse 4 years ago. I hope you like it.
I started Blueyse about 4 years ago, I think, right now. And at the time, I haven't really worked for myself yet. I think 4 years ago, I was 23. And I studied hotel management, so something completely different than what I'm doing now. But then I worked in a few hotels and restaurants and that sort of thing, hospitality in general. And then started working in a more corporate environment, in the sales function. And I just found myself wanting to do something else, not really feeling comfortable anymore within the environment that was over there. But then I also found out, I also really want to do something that makes sense or creates at least some sort of an impact, and not just doing it for myself, as otherwise I really felt like, okay, you're getting up in the morning, 9 o'clock, whatever, you're going to work, and then you're going back at 6, and then you're, I don't know, having dinner, watching TV, and going back to bed, and then there was zero purpose in life, I felt like. As work is such a big part of your life, so I really wanted to make some sort of sense and do something impactful. And as myself, being a bisexual woman, I also experienced a lot of odd situations when telling people like, oh, I have a girlfriend at that time, and but you were with men before. Like, oh, okay. And then you probably also have a lot of threesomes. So special questions that you experience then, and then you're also like, okay, is this a normal question, or I don't know, do I only think this is a strange question?
Yeah, I heard that one a few times as well.
Yeah.
There's someone like, oh, but why don't you just choose a side, you know?
Yeah, and also like that, okay, just choose a side, don't be difficult.
Yeah.
Just go for it. And then I also looked into it more and more, like just general queer rights and also women's rights and rights of people with different backgrounds than just cis gender straight males or females. And I think that's at this time there's quite a lot wrong with society, and that's been for a long time. And of course there is been some improvements along the way, but I think there's still a lot that needs to be done. And I think we as Blueyse and myself and the companies that we work with just have a very big part to play in the change.
And when you say that there is a lot wrong with society, what exactly do you think society can improve on?
Well, for example, if you look at the world's challenges, I think I don't know if correct me if I'm wrong, or people that are listening, but about 70 countries I'm not welcome in. So I think that already really showcases the status, and also what happens now in Iran, and so many things that are happening, but especially this one that for me, of course, hits home.
And going back to what you said before about starting Blueyse and not wanting to just work, go back home, watch TV, and repeat. What do you think that you are doing that prevents that cycle, for example?
It's a bit of a shame to admit, but I'm still doing it. But I feel like the work that we're doing makes sense. We work with organizations that create real impact, and we're also, I think, within the organization itself, and all are very passionate about the topic of inclusion and creating change.
Yeah, so it's a real job that has a real impact to society.
I think for everybody, a meaningful job can be something different. But I know for me, I just find more purpose in it being meaningful for not only myself, but also others.
How does Blueyse then make you feel like I'm contributing something? In what way does it do that?
Yeah. Well, I think we do it in several ways. As we really, it's kind of in 3 steps. We want to inspire people to become more aware of what they can do and also what already is happening. We do that through our own campaigns, but also through our social media channels, with articles, and of course this podcast, hopefully in the future. For example, we did a campaign on microaggressions. Of course, I don't tell something new to you, but I will just tell the You Are What You Speak campaign, where we talk about microaggressions. We also been in the Financiële Dagblad in the Netherlands, and also on social media, and also through various other people you may seen us, and also through Amsterdam, Utrecht, and Amersfoort with posters, where we just want to start a conversation on microaggressions and what it actually is. And that our comments are not always just comments, but they can also be harmful and painful for people to hear or get so many times. People will also become more aware. I think everybody has a bias or makes assumptions or anything in that realm. And with these campaigns and also with discussions and with events and all sort of related things, I think it's important to have those. If you already have a conversation with people close to you, then you have a normal conversation, or at least as it quickly turns to being very emotional and aggressive. As people say, "Oh, you call me racist," like, well, I'm not calling you anything. I'm just trying to discuss something, a topic.
I think avoiding those labels, unless it's extreme, I think it's a good idea. Like, instead of saying things like racist, just talking about it in a more gentle way, so that people are not afraid. Like, oh, I'm not racist. Yeah,
and also more in an open and safe way. And if they find in the end kind of understand somebody else's perspective or view, and you kind of inspire this person, and you can do that with 5 people in your surroundings, and those people also do that with 5 people in their surroundings. Like, oh, I had this conversation. How do you feel about it? Blah, blah, blah. And then you can create a real ripple effect. And I think that's the same with for example, this podcast. If we only have 5 listeners and 5 listeners say, "Oh, this is great. Oh, very interesting," and start talking with their friends, like, "Hey, I heard this in this podcast. What do you think? Or how do you feel about this?" And then
I think that's already an accomplishment.
Yeah,
if that is achieved.
Yeah.
And I think the more conversation, the more it's talked about, the more effect it has.
And of course, there also should be a change in behavior if you really make racist jokes or attack people from other groups that have a different religion or whatever. Then there should after the awareness come action. But without awareness, there will never be action, I think.
Or maybe you could tell us what are the positive sides of inclusion? Like, what is the positives?
There's just so many ways to inclusion that are relevant and important. But I always think it's a humane thing. How can you think of only metrics? How can't your organization perform better with different perspectives? The only way is that it will perform better if you have the right tools for everyone. As you also have organizations like, oh, okay, diversity, yeah, okay, important. I need to have 2 black people then to create a bit of diversity, and do one with a headscarf, and
that is the box.
I think that
okay,
that person is queer. Okay,
Yeah.
do this one as well.
Yeah.
We have diversity, and in the next 2 months they're gone. It's like, okay, then they're all gone, but had the diversity. Maybe they saw something in the vacancy that matched, but then you didn't do anything within the organization to keep people.
Yeah.
So if you look at, of course, retention rate of employees, that they stay will save you a lot of money. Attracting new people, the creativity of people within the organization are already a few things that will improve.
Yeah, and I think when it's a real change, when it's not greenwashing but for inclusivity. I'm sure there's a word for that, but that's essentially what you explained. But it has to be a change that happens within the organization. Like, okay, let's focus on inclusion and how we can build our customers, our stakeholders, everyone, and to make everyone feel seen.
Yeah. And also I think nowadays it's also very important to really change internally instead of only changing your marketing materials. Of course, you can, like I mentioned, with the diversity hires, to say, okay, we have some diverse people in here, or that creates the diversity. If you only create the diversity in your marketing materials, then it's just untrue.
There used to be that diverse person for the photo, and then
then you're my check.
Yeah, having worked with you and knowing how you feel about things, I know that you're very passionate about actual inclusivity. So I'm curious, what was it? Was there something that happened that you were motivated personally that said, this is going to be my mission now. This is something I want to do. This is my thing I want to do.
Yeah. Well, I think that's been a very long track as well to feeling more strong and being more vocal about it as well. I think that's been a very long way, and also kind of to come to terms also with myself, as I think I've been also very much struggling with being open with Cato, even when we were already together. And I think now I'm very proud of who I am and what we're doing, and also who we are as a couple, so to say. That it also gave me more of a voice to say, okay, we're gonna do something about this. And I think the thing that I can't take at all is unfairness. And I think many people have it, but just it's to me so unfair. That because of your skin color or because of who you are, who you love, how you're educated, whatever, that you don't get the same chance. Well, I think I just want to be very close to myself and my beliefs, and this is what I believe, so this is the way to go, I think. And then it maybe also sounds very harsh, like, okay, but also what I think is the truth. And I hope, or I think, that I don't think that way. It's always a learning curve. But I don't see another way than doing it the fair way.
And we talked about before how that is something that you feel strongly about.
Mm-hmm. The validation of education.
The validation of education in the Netherlands. Yeah. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, how do I feel about it? I think it's just here in the Netherlands, as that's my experience. People that are educated as MBO, as we have here, instead of HBO or VO, are seen then less than others, or at least than the higher, quote unquote, higher educated. And I also very much experienced it for a long time, and I think still, but it can also be just my own imposter syndrome. But for me, as being stupid, I'm not smart at all. As I did MBO, and I did what was it called? BBL? That you worked 4 days and you studied 1 day. But I always felt like, okay, but what can I do here? What am I good at? And I think many people have that, and probably also people who studied HBO or WO. on universities. But I had it very strongly. And I feel also when you are indeed at parties and whatever, these comments are made. That, okay, but people who are at this university are too good or too smart for people who did practically educated studies.
Really? People say that?
Yeah. And also in my face, and then I say, well, I'm practically educated. It's like, oh, okay, but you're the exception.
Yeah, but
Okay.
that's so patronizing.
I can be happy about this or something. I don't know.
That is so patronizing. It's like, oh, don't worry, you don't have the smart ones, but everyone else is not.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
For you, it worked out, but the other ones, we don't hire people who are from MBO, as they don't match the level of ambition that we want within our organization. And I think not all organizations think like that, but you also have many, for example, the bigger organizations. I don't think, in my opinion, that I would get in on my resume. And only after I got my Harvard degree, I was like, okay, I can do something.
Yeah.
It's kind of a validation as well for yourself to say, okay, I'm not only practical. And also, I think becoming a knowledge economy, I think we're now kind of experiencing the struggles from it, as you can't, if people don't pick up the garbage, then we have real problems. Or people don't work in hospitality anymore.
Yeah. Or
also,
train strikes, like they were like
train strikes. You also have cleaning people, all sort of practical things. And without people practicing these jobs, you have real problems. And if I look at myself, I should also go back to hospitality, as that's not a bullshit job. As now I'm just moving stuff around and saying, oh guys, this is important. Oh, we need to do an extra social media post. But if I don't post this post, nobody cares. But if I don't take the trash or pick the trash up a day, then everybody will be mad and the whole street will be very shitty.
You personally, when you said this is the kind of marketing thing I want to do, this is the kind of change I want to make, what is that change when it comes to the way companies market?
I think that starts internally and then external. As if you start internal, then it's real. And if you only do it external, or then it's pinkwashing. But if you first do it internal, have everybody behind it, know how to feedback each other, create a feedback culture, and an open culture, and train your employees on like, okay, why is this important, and why do we do this, and how can you contribute, and then go in external. But then it's fine to make your marketing materials more inclusive, as long as your organization also represents it. If your management team is fully white with elderly male and maybe one female, whatever, then it's not real. Then you're, I don't know, then you can feel like, oh, maybe this is important. But if you don't see it anywhere within the organization and don't have retention rates, people are leaving you all the time that are in any way diverse, then there is no business on having a more diverse marketing externally.
I agree. That's, in a way, that's like being a swim teacher without knowing how to swim, Yeah. So like, if you don't know how to make change within your own company, whether it's your own thinking and the way of the people that work with you, or the way your team is composed, then you can't say, oh yeah, I'm gonna make a change elsewhere.
Yeah,
there's no grounds for that.
Yeah, it's the same with greenwashing. That people say, oh, I'm a pioneer on clean energy, whatever. But you're not a pioneer on clean energy. Like, okay, why would you say that's just lying? And that's the same, I think, with just showing diverse people and say, oh, we're very inclusive.
Yeah, and I think that the way to make it easier to spot whether it is greenwashing in the topic of inclusion, it's whether it's done with a profit incentive or whether it's done with a humanitarian incentive in mind. Because if you do it from a profit perspective, then you don't care about the actual change. You just want to get a certain target audience and then get money from them. But then if you focus on the humanitarian side, then the money is less important. It's more the change that you're focusing on.
But then I think you also don't understand the importance of inclusion.
In which way?
If you see it as a business case, or at least it is a business case, for sure. But you also need to understand the impact that it will have.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, I'm not. Yeah.
yeah, it's not only like, okay, I need to earn more money, so I need more employees, or I need whatever. It's also, okay, I want to do better. It's important to make this change for my employees, for myself, for the company, for my growth.
Yeah.
If there's a board of directors, let's say there's a bank that's been around for 100 years,
Mm-hmm.
and the board of directors have been there for the last 20, let's say 20, 25 years, the board of directors. And let's say the board of directors is a bunch of 20 men over the age of 50, 55,
Mm-hmm.
over the age of 60, let's be realistic, and all white, cis,
The typical.
yeah.
Yeah.
What would it take then? Does that mean that they can't be inclusive, that they're excluded from inclusivity, or how do we go about talking to them about inclusivity, and how do we show them, the benefits, and how do we make that change? Because I think maybe those are the ones that need to hear this sort of message
Mm-hmm.
and understand the benefits, understand what they'll get. Does that mean that because they're a company where the board is a bunch of old white guys, it's over, they can't be inclusive, you guys are just, it's done, it's not going to happen, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we're saying? Or?
Well, I don't think that's what we're saying. I think everybody has a learning curve. And also these organizations, companies, or people, it's the same. But I think, how to get them included within or join the conversation. Like, okay, why do we do this? Why is this important? Indeed, show some metrics, if there are metrics with tangible results to say, okay, this is how much your organization will do better when you include diversity and inclusion. But also make sure, okay, you also understand what it means. And what it means is that you will not go to the golf course when you're looking, it's also very stereotypical, but not go to the golf course when you need to find a new director. You have an open application process and you will look outside of your bubble and have an unbiased, or at least from your organization, and completely biased is not possible, or unbiased is probably not possible, but as unbiased as possible, and then you can change, and it will not go overnight, but it can change.
Yeah, no, historically marketing has been basically lying to people.
Uh-huh.
That was basically, they had doctors telling people, I like smoking Camel, and it's okay to smoke Camel. And
Oxycontin is great.
yeah, exactly. You have. So how do we change that story then, as a marketing entity, and marketing as a whole?
Tell new stories, or at least change the stories from and change the perspectives, I think, from the organizations that we're working with. I think that's something we can do, and be present and be vocal, and stay eager to learn, to create new stories and make people more aware, I think. And of course, we're not here in the business to sell stuff. We don't have customers who are doing drop shipping, for example, or telling things that are not true or bad for the world or whatever. So yeah, as long at least if we can make this little change for the organizations that we work with, I think that's a start, and amplify the voices of people who are not always heard or not always told. The question feels a little bit like, okay, how can you solve the world's biggest challenges? I think you start with yourself. Also a typical one, start with yourself. And then, we're working here more and more with more and more people. And that also starts with them. Or goes on with the client. And then, just widen our reach and change lives.
I think with this, like solving the world problems, I don't think it should be like our end goal, but I think trying to dip our feet in the water and say, okay, these are the huge problems that are happening in the world. Do we have a say in it? Do we not? And then how can we contribute or at least move towards them? I think it's a good start, because I feel like if we don't ask these questions in the first place, there's never going to be progress. Yeah. So I think that's personally why I think having this conversation is also important.
Yeah, but also indeed to keep asking the questions. I think nobody has the real knowledge of what is true.
Would you consider that would you say that activism plays a part in the new, quote unquote, or I would call the new marketing?
I think that plays a big part of my marketing. As just telling the story to not make people angry or feel, Of course, it's not like, white people are awful. For sure not. Definitely not. But it's more, I forgot where I was going. What was your question again?
What part does, or how much
activism.
Of activism play?
Yeah, how does it play a role in marketing? Well, it plays a big role in my marketing. And I think if you will not be an activist, why would people change? Same with Qatar. There are many people that are speaking up, but the biggest company or many big companies are still sponsoring this tournament. The FIFA is still canceling One Love bands without being a real activist for people's rights, for people of color, just people with different sexual orientation or anything, then there will be nothing happening. Nobody will listen to somebody just raising their hand like, oh hey guys, can I maybe say something? I want to change something. And it's like, oh no, that costs money. Okay. I'm going back. Doesn't mean anything. You have to, I think, be an activist and say, okay, this is what I stand for, and we need to change.
Thank you for listening to the Have You Met Me podcast. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. We'll be here again in 2 weeks. Do you want to stay up to date? Follow us on our social media channels. We are mostly active on LinkedIn. Thank you again and hope to hear you next time.